Okay, we have a new unit, Unit 4. This is more like the other units we have where you will have notes in class, PowerPoints. I know some of you are very happy about that. Even though the test that you just took was on the Enlightenment, we are still talking about it because it is part of what inspires the French Revolution. If you need to go back, rewind, and do that, take 5. So the French Revolution and Napoleon, they are like the scientific revolution and Enlightenment, two separate but related issues or topics or things. So if you are watching this in Canvas, just pop over to the right-hand side of the column, watch the video about the Enlightenment inspiring the American Revolution. Do that now. Okay, so we have an entire unit that is about France, but I'm starting with the Americans because the American Revolution wouldn't have happened without the Enlightenment. And some of those main thinkers, they mentioned some of them in the video, and you learned all of them last unit, but some of those main thinkers, John Locke. John Locke, the idea that he contributes to the Americans, that man is born with rights, natural rights, life, liberty, and property. And because man is good by nature, government doesn't need to control man. Government just should protect those rights. So the Americans are going to adopt that. Then we have Voltaire. Voltaire, who writes satiric plays and all of that, and is sort of punished by his own government. The main idea the Americans take away, freedom of speech. Even today, that's very important to our culture and our society. We get it from Voltaire and his writings in the 18th century. We have Montesquieu and the idea of a separation of powers, or 3 branches of government. You know, the Americans are living under a system with a monarch who has lots of power, King George III. The American colonists decide, you know what, we want to break up that power, prevent any one party or any one body or one person from having too much power. And then we have Rousseau. Rousseau, who said, you know, man's good. Our nature is good. It's governments and societies and systems that screw it all up. So in order to help government be better, we need the people as individuals who are good to be involved. So involvement of the citizens, more representation and involvement of the citizens, and doing that through, because you hopefully are becoming more educated as a result of the Enlightenment, you can make educated decisions when it comes to your involvement in the government. So from this list, these are sort of the big 4, you could say. 3 of these 4 were French, or considered themselves to be French. So one thing that's happening is the French look at the American Revolution and say, wait a minute, these are French ideas. The Americans are living them out. They are making them happen. Why can't we have the same thing happen in France? So the idea of revolution, the ideas of the Enlightenment, in turn, inspire the French Revolution. So, and we need to now figure out or talk about what the situation in France is. We're in the 1770s. The king at the time is Louis XVI. He is yet another member of the Bourbon family. His great-great-grandfather is Louis XIV, the Sun King. Bourbon family goes all the way back to Henry of Navarre in the 1500s. So the Bourbons have been in power for, 200 years. And like Dickens says on that first page of A Tale of Two Cities, is they thought things were settled forever. They are very settled, happy in their situations in life. Sort of taking off a new step from the idea of the Sun King from Louis XIV. Louis XVI really believes that his role as king is to be almost a father figure, in the way that 14th Sun King wants to sort of shine down his glory among all the little people and be the center of their life. Louis XVI isn't quite as self-centered, but the same idea of, I am a king, you need me. But, I think Louis XVI is a pretty nice guy. He has nice eyes, even if he is a little chubby. And every king that we've talked about wants or needs an heir and gets that through a wife. So Louis XVI will be married to Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette is Austrian. She is the daughter of Maria Theresa, the Austrian Habsburg Empress. This is the same Maria Theresa who kept power as a result of the War of Austrian Succession. So Marie Antoinette is the 15th of 15 children. Maria Theresa has taken over a country, has ruled a country that is aware that it is in decline. Since the 1600s, Austria has been getting weaker and weaker. We saw that in Unit 2 with Leopold I and the 30 Years' War and the War of Austrian Succession. Austria knows that it's sort of the loser of Europe. So Maria Theresa, she's going to use these 15 kids to help build up her friendships, to create alliances or repair relationships with the other countries in Europe. So Marie Antoinette grows up knowing she'll probably be married off to a duke or a prince or a king for the greater good of her country, Austria. Even though Maria Theresa was a very strong woman, a very determined leader, the sort of message she imparts to her daughters in particular, that the role of a queen is to not be strong-willed and to have opinions. The role of a queen is to support your husband and to make sure that there is an heir and a spare, or an heir and 14 spares. So Marie Antoinette grows up knowing that she will sort of be a part of her family and her nation's legacy. Louis and Marie Antoinette, they are married in 1770. Louis is 16 years old, Marie is 14. She travels from Vienna, Austria, to Versailles, just outside of Paris. It's about an 800-mile journey. It takes her 4 weeks because she stops along the way to visit different towns so that people can see her, the new crown princess of France. And when they meet, again, they are 14 and 16 years old. They are awkward teenagers. They've been betrothed or essentially legally engaged for almost a decade, but they've never met. So when they meet, it's pretty awkward. If you're able to pause this video, or just if you're in Canvas, just over to the right, watch the video that's labeled Marie Antoinette 1, because I think it really shows sort of how this relationship starts between these two. Okay, so Louis and Marie, they actually, even though they have sort of an awkward start, they do become really good friends. And I say friends specifically because they don't quite officially or properly become husband and wife for quite a few years. And this makes Maria Theresa back in Austria very nervous. She's worried that this alliance will fail if her daughter, Marie Antoinette, does not have a child soon. So 14-year-old, 15-year-old Marie Antoinette, she's the crown princess, the Dauphine of France. She has all of this pressure from back home. She must, do what she needs to do for Austria. She has pressure from within France. The French and the Austrians were not really friends. This marriage was an attempt to restore the relationship. People don't like Marie Antoinette because she is Austrian. If you watch the video clip, you heard Louis's aunt say, "Oh, I hope you're ready for some Apfelstrudel," making fun of her Austrianness. Marie Antoinette does finally catch a break, though, in 1774, when the grandfather king, Louis XV, dies, and now Louis and Marie Antoinette, 18 and 20 years old, become king and queen. So no longer a crown prince and crown princess, king and queen. And from Marie's perspective, she's a bit safer. It's a lot harder to get rid of a queen than to get rid of a princess who hasn't produced an heir yet. Marie Antoinette is still going to face a number of challenges. Getting used to life at Versailles, very different than life back in Vienna at Schönbrunn Palace. She was one of 15 kids. They were all really friendly, and everyone would come to the dinner table and just, not the rules and regulations of Versailles. So if you watch the next video clip, first it shows sort of the awkward wedding night that didn't quite happen between these two, and then some of the rules and ceremonies that Marie Antoinette has to get used to. Okay, so Marie Antoinette and Louis have pressure from within France. They have pressure coming from out of France. And then they have financial issues. Versailles is really, really big. You have to pay people to clean it. You have to pay the chef. You have to pay someone to pump the fountains and clean out the fountains and do all of that stuff on such a grand scale. We also know already that just building Versailles back in the 1600s cost a ton of money. So this long-term debt is catching up with the French. In addition to building and maintaining Versailles, there also is the debt resulting from various wars, especially the War of Spanish Succession we talked about in like 1714. The 7 Years' War from 1756 to 1763. All of this now, it's finally starting to catch up with the French. Meanwhile, Marie Antoinette is still a sort of bored, scared teenager. Her husband isn't treating her like a true wife. She doesn't have any children to take care of. So she starts spending money. She starts shopping and getting her hair done and all sorts of things. And it doesn't help that her husband, Louis, he's young. He doesn't know any better. He had never been really prepared to be king because he was never meant to be king. He was the second son. He was the quiet one, and his brother was the outgoing, athletic one. Louis is very shy, as you heard in the video. His hobbies are hunting and collecting antique locks. He is not prepared to be king at 20 years old. Again, here's just another look at Versailles. It is so huge. The cost of keeping everything up to date. This is their bedroom. Really expensive stuff. If you want to watch a video, this is a great video again from Marie Antoinette, just sort of demonstrating Marie Antoinette's frustration and how she takes it out. Here, Marie would have been just in her early 20s. She becomes, a fashion icon. She's wearing the latest and greatest, and think of these as selfies. She has these outrageous dresses that have yards and yards and yards of fabric. That's really expensive. She, uses crazy hairstyles to express herself. The crazier the better, because what else is she going to do? She starts gambling. These gambling houses aren't going to allow the queen to win just because she's the queen. Their job is to make money, and they are making tons of money off her, because the thing with gambling is you always lose, and the house always wins. Marie Antoinette had read Rousseau and Rousseau's works about going back to nature, because that is the natural state of man is good. So she has a peasant village built from scratch on the grounds of Versailles, because peasants live closer to nature, and she's trying to follow the Enlightenment. So she has her own sheep and her own little cows that get milked every day for her. And she has cups of tea out of brand new porcelain. And it's actually a little insulting that she's spending money to pretend like she's poor. So then all of this leads up to the time of the American Revolution, where we started this lesson. The French decide that they want to help the American revolutionaries. Now, they certainly don't really have the money for it, but they're doing it because France wants to defeat Britain. They still are trying to recover their reputation, get back at Britain for the 7 Years' War. So that's really the main reason. Unfortunately, King Louis XVI isn't considering that he is supporting a rebellion against a king. It's not a great example to be setting for the French people. And the way that the French are going to support the Americans, at first just with cash, to help supply them, allow the Americans to buy things, to pay their soldiers and all of that. And then eventually, the French army will begin to support the Americans. This becomes pretty important. It helps the Americans win the revolution. This is the point at which American politicians are going over to France to ask for support. That's when Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams live in Paris for a few years. And all of that is well and good for the Americans, but from the French, they are in debt. So how are they going to pay for this? How is Louis XVI going to pay for all of this? He has all of these external and internal pressures. He's going to pay for it with taxes. That is it for 4.1.